evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's Regional Hospital is making changes in its emergency department for the safety of patients and staff. And hospital leadership also plans on bringing back more workers from home, in addition to allowing a wider range of visitors into the facility in coming weeks. Corey Nordstrom has more.
The regional hospital's COVID-19 incident manager says patients have expressed high levels of anxiety upon entering their emergency department. Dr. Stuart Kennedy says that's prompted some changes in the ER to help ease the minds of those entering.
All our emergency doctors, all our staff are wearing total PPE when you come to the ER. So you'll have the face shields, you'll have the masks, you're going to have the total gown and gloves on.
As they inch towards normalcy, some leadership working from home have returned to the hospital and are developing plans to bring back more of their staff.
We have ramped things back up to 50%. We're meeting next week to see the next stage will be 75%, and the next stage after will be 100%. But we take a lot of things into consideration. We take in our PPE supply, we take in our bed capacity, we take in our medication use, and we take in our human resources.
And soon more visitors will be able to see their loved ones, in addition to essential care partners who have been allowed in the hospital since the onset of the pandemic.
We'll probably come forward over the next week or two that we will actually allow care partners, visitors, very restricted time and restricted numbers. We're bringing that policy back very soon.
The COVID unit currently has 7 patients with 3 active cases. Kennedy says the Premier calling for more asymptomatic testing and testing being a requirement to see loved ones in long-term care mean the hospital's assessment center has become a busy place with great overall numbers to date.
Our numbers now are over 20,000 we've tested, and again, only 90 cases have been positive. And our rate of positive tests to the total test we've done is at 0.5, probably one of the best in Canada.
The district hasn't had a new positive COVID-19 case in over a week. Corey Nordstrom, TBC News.
Mayors in the Greater Toronto Area are moving to make the wearing of masks mandatory in enclosed public spaces. The mayors of Toronto, Mississauga, and Brampton have all asked their city councils to approve temporary bylaws calling for masks. They say it's a necessary step in efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. Colin DeMello has more.
The province may be progressing through this pandemic, but local mayors believe Ontario needs one additional layer of protection. Now, those mayors will make masks mandatory for publicly used indoor spaces.
Wearing fabric masks or face coverings keep you from unknowingly spreading this COVID-19 virus and keeps the people around you from spreading it to you.
Toronto, Mississauga, and Brampton are all introducing a mandatory mask policy set to take effect next week. Any indoor space where the public could gather and physical distancing is limited would require the use of a face covering.
I want to be clear that there will be no onus on businesses to provide their customers with a mask, but businesses will have the right to refuse customers if they do not wear a mask.
The impetus for the new policy is economic recovery. Mayors say if masks can prevent local transmission, then more sectors of the economy can reopen. But an increase in cases could easily jeopardize the progress.
We're at a critical time in the fight against COVID-19. We must do everything we can to avoid the flare-up of this virus in our community.
But local health officials caution that the patchwork of policies could cause confusion, and they're calling for provincial standards.
Enact a complementary mask regulation applicable to enclosed public spaces in our city that are under provincial or federal jurisdiction.
A request that was quickly shot down by Premier Doug Ford.
Each region has the authority to make their own rules, but Toronto and Peel is different than Kenora Rainy River. It's apples and oranges.
Meanwhile, local politicians say they are banking on good faith.
There won't really be an aggressive enforcement, to be candid about it. We don't have the resources to be able to go around and look in every store or look at every person.
Cities will focus on education about the personal responsibility during this pandemic.
A report from Ontario's Ombudsman is raising concern about Ontario correctional facilities, and jails here in Thunder Bay and in Kenora are coming in for particular attention. Ombudsman Paul Dubé compiled the report after receiving over 6,000 complaints from inmates last year. Problems cited include overcrowding, poor living conditions, and a lack of access to medical care. Dubé and his staff visited several institutions as part of their investigation, and he singles out Thunder Bay and Kenora, calling conditions in those jails disturbing. Residential school survivors and First Nations leaders continue to demand the removal of Lynn Beyak from Canada's Senate. They've delivered a letter to the Senate questioning a University of Manitoba 3-day course on racism and Indigenous Crown relations that was designed for Beyak. Upon completion of that course, it was announced that Beyak's suspension from the Senate was being lifted. The suspension had been imposed amid a long-running controversy surrounding comments supportive of residential schools and racist letters published on her website. But opponents say they weren't consulted and had no input into the course content. And they say instead of listening to Indigenous people from Beyak's home region, someone has decided that academia knows better. Thunder Bay police are reporting several arrests in connection with a fraudulent check cashing scheme. An investigation was launched in January after several fake checks began to surface that were made to look like they were from Deliko Anishinaabeg Family Care. In total, 55 bogus checks worth $70,000 were cashed. Today, the Economic Crimes Unit announced charges against 13 suspects, ranging in age from 58 to just 17 years old. All of them are facing fraud and use of forged document charges. Damages are reported to be minimal following a fire late last night at the Bombardier plant. Fire crews were called to the facility around 11 o'clock following reports of a blaze inside the plant, but by the time they arrived, workers had extinguished the flames already. It's believed the fire was started from a spark from a plasma cutter that ignited a piece of plastic debris. Bombardier officials say they expect to be back in full production tomorrow following an investigation into the circumstances. Well, it's no secret that Chippewa Park has lost some of its magic over the years due to a number of factors. But now, the city has drafted a plan for several enhancements to the park and its shoreline, including the removal of the breakwater, which would improve water quality and swimming conditions. Troy Charles has that story.
This view, with the Chippewa Breakwall and Sleeping Giant off in the distance, could soon be a thing of the past. A new plan has been released by the city and the Friends of Chippewa Park. Removal of the 70-year-old breakwater and wooden dock would improve water quality near the park's main beach, which has faced numerous closures in recent years due to high E. coli bacteria counts. The plan also addresses shoreline erosion issues as well as minimizing runoff and sediment contamination. JML Engineering has developed the proposal with a price tag estimated at $1.1 million. Ian Angus from the Friends of Chippewa Park explains how they are hoping for a grant to cover the costs.
We'll be submitting an application to the Ontario Ministry of Environment, Parks and Conservation for up to $1 million to do the work. We've had some preliminary discussions with the ministry. They funded the preparation of the plan, so we're optimistic that they will be able to come through with the money. It's going to depend on anything post-COVID, as well as the normal budgetary process. But we have an application ready to go in, and it will be in there shortly once the plan's finalized.
Chippewa Park has seen better days, especially after a powerful storm last October, which dislodged a section of the Breakwaters boardwalk. That section of wood still remains at the park. The plan also includes the removal of the dilapidated wooden fence and retaining wall that lines the water's edge. Werner Schwarz, the city's project manager for this undertaking, and gives more insight into the proposed methods for protecting the shoreline from wave and ice action as well as erosion.
To protect the shore with some of the rock that we would be taking away from the breakwater to armor the shore, especially in that area closer to the breakwater, to take the most brunt of the wave action. And then for adjacent to the beach area where we want to maintain it as a beach, use more natural bioengineering techniques and use plant material to help stabilize the upper shore rather than things like rock.
For now, Schwar and Angus are encouraging public feedback to the various parts of the proposal. That can be accessed on the Chippewa Park and City's websites. Schwar says the summer of 2021 is the earliest construction could begin, and that could take up to 2 to 3 months for completion. Troy Charles, TBT News.
If summer is your favorite season of the year, then this year's version has gotten off to a great start thanks to an extra hot month of June. Environment Canada says that as of Monday, the average daily high temperature in the city was more than 2 degrees above normal for June. In meteorological terms, that's a significant difference. At the Thunder Bay Airport, the average maximum through the month was 22.8 degrees Celsius, compared with the long-term average of 20.6. The all-time record for the month came in 1988, when June saw a daily high average of 23.7 Celsius. Now this July will begin with an even more impressive warming trend. Starting tomorrow on Canada Day, Thunder Bay is expected to see 5 consecutive days of 30-degree weather. Officials with Thunder Bay Fire Rescue are preparing for a busier Canada Day than usual in terms of private fireworks being set off. With no city fireworks display this year, fire officials are reminding the community to make sure that they're lighting their fireworks safely. Cole Promain reports.
One of the main things Thunder Bay Fire Rescue officials say residents should do is make sure they are following the instructions on the box, which advise people how much space they need before lighting their fireworks. Fire Prevention Officer Kevin Anderson recommends being extra aware of one's surroundings.
You can only set them off on your own property. You can't go to a park, you can't go to the street, right? So you need to have enough clearance in your yard. If you're all full of trees, well, it's probably not the best place to do it. And, be aware of neighbors and pets, right? Not everybody likes fireworks, so just be respectful of others.
With the increased sales of fireworks this year and people being limited to their homes, naturally, there is an increased risk of fires starting, but Anderson says the fire department's not too concerned of there being any major issues.
No, we've never had any problems in the past with fire started from fireworks, so again, they're designed to be shot up straight and, basically be out before they land, so they're meant to work that way, so we're not anticipating any problems.
Anderson also says that those who do light fireworks in their yard should also have a water source close by in case of any emergencies. And if anybody sees someone shooting off fireworks in a dangerous manner, they should call the fire department.
Well, if you see somebody shooting fireworks, into a bunch of trees or into houses, they should be going straight up, right? So if it's anything other than that, yeah, it's a good time to call before something bad happens.
Cole Promain, TBT News.
And just one more day until Canada Day, but due to COVID-19, the city-run celebration will be a whole lot different here in Thunder Bay this time around. Thousands of people normally gather in Marina Park to celebrate on July 1st. This year, they can do so virtually. The online activities began on Monday and will ramp up tomorrow, starting with a Canada cake decorating tutorial at 2 o'clock. Then at 4, there's a virtual demonstration on how to make a Canadian pizza. And there's also an NHL 20 video game tournament, which takes place throughout the entire day. Now, in the evening, the opening ceremonies will begin online at 6 p.m., followed by performances by the Thunder Bay World Dance Collective, Jean-Paul Derouver, and Almost ABBA. Event supervisor Luisa Costanzo says there are a couple different ways that people can take part.
So it's thunderbay.ca/Canada Day, and that's where you're going to see everything, the schedule, the timing, and then some videos will be on Facebook after if you've missed it. We also have a downloadable coloring page for kids if you like that, or adults, whoever wants to color, you do it. And then we also have a scavenger hunt that's going to be happening as well.
We hope a lot of people take part of that, or at least take advantage of that.